Welcome to the Putback, presented by Fanatics Sportsbook. On today's show, we have Coach James Young, the NBA and college analyst for SportsGrid, and we've got Shaun Geddes. If you're watching this, you probably know him on Twitter, brand I'm Possible. And we break all things Knicks down. We get into Karl-Anthony Towns' fit, what's happening there that's going right, maybe not going right. We get into the injury news with Miles McBride and Mitchell Robinson maybe being back Friday night. And we get into what we've seen so far from the offense, from Mike Brown, and what it means for the future. This NBA season, don't let an injury rule out your bet. And with Fanatics Fair Play Injury Protection, your pro basketball bets are covered for all first half injuries. That's why there is no better place to bet than Fanatics Sportsbook. And last night proved this point twice. First, that Nick nemesis down in Atlanta, the point guard, and then the big man over in Dallas, both all-stars leaving their respective games in the first quarter due to leg injuries. Fanatics Fair Play voided all pro player prop bets across straights, parlays, and same-game parlays instantly. Some books protect your bet just for the first quarter, some do nothing, but not at Fanatics Sportsbooks, where they'll flip your losing bets into winning bets for the whole pro basketball season. Don't wait for that bad beat with other books. Bet with the book that always has your back. Fanatics Sportsbook, winning hits different here. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Not available in all states. Terms apply. See Fanatics Sportsbook app. Welcome to the Putback on SNY.TV, presented by Fanatics Sportsbooks. We're going to break down things with the Knicks and the NBA over the course of the next half hour or so. And I have two fantastic guests with me. I got Shaun Geddes, I'm Possible brand. I'm sure you know him from Twitter, social media. You know him from putting together that Knicks fan basketball game in the offseason, which was quite an event. And I also have Coach James Young. Coach James Young is the lead basketball analyst at SportsGrid. He breaks down the NBA. He breaks down college basketball. He's a longtime college and high school coach in the local area, and he works as a skills trainer with some players in the area. So he's all over the game, and he's been all over the Knicks so far this season. And we're going to get started, guys, as we always do, with the baseline here. Knicks obviously coming off a loss, getting it wasn't a blowout in Milwaukee, but not a competitive game in that fourth quarter once Giannis started to get going. Knicks 2-2 heading into tomorrow's game at the undefeated Chicago Bulls. And before we get into that game Friday and what's ahead, let's talk about Karl-Anthony Towns and the Bucks here, Coach. I want to just hear your general thoughts on what you saw from Towns in the context of that Knick new offense and what you thought of it.
Well, Ian, I think they're just trying to figure it out, to be all honest with you. And if you watch the way the Knicks kind of get into their offense, number one, we could tell that Cat is not healthy. Just his ability to get up the floor, kind of lagging behind the offense, a team that wants to push the pace, flatten the defense out. The second thing is the Knicks play almost two different ways when Cat is the 5 or when he's at the 4. Sometimes he's at the 4, they'll run like Hutporty on a wing ball screen, and they'll space Cat to the weak side of the floor where he can catch and shoot the ball from 3. Or if they put him into that pinch, they run that split screen action that Mike Brown got from Sacramento. Obviously brought over, and he brought with him the Sacramento from Golden State. What I saw, Ian, was a lot of early wing ball screen action and then diving Cat. That's not Cat's game, in my opinion. I think he's more of a pick and pop kind of guy or space the floor kind of guy. So I think they're trying to figure it out. But I also think overall as a team, Ian, they got to play with a little bit more pace. They're kind of walking the ball up the floor, and I don't think that's the pace that Coach Mike Brown wants to play with right now.
Yeah, interesting first few games here for Brown and for Karl-Anthony Towns and for the Knicks as a whole. And Shaun, I'm just wondering for you, your thoughts on what you saw from Towns in that second half against Milwaukee.
What I saw from Cat in the second half against Milwaukee was disappointing, to say the least. I'm going to attribute it to injury. I think it must be the quad. I hope that it's not. I hope that he gets right, whatever it may be. But to me, there's just whatever is going on in the offense, whatever the scheme is. Sometimes basketball gets very simple and comes down to just basketball. And so when Kyle Kuzma is on Karl Towns, I would like to see Karl Towns be able to establish position and not get pushed out to the 3-point line while posting up. When he does get the ball with Kyle Kuzma on him, I would like to see him be able to take advantage. Like Kyle Kuzma weighs like 70 pounds less than him. I would like to see Cat be able to take advantage of that matchup. Like when shots don't fall, that's one thing. But I just don't feel like he necessarily, fought for the position that he could have gotten. In some of those lineups, like with the starters, he's more, on the perimeter, picking and popping, things like that. And I think in that second unit, a lot of times from my observations, when he's out there with Tyler Kolek, it's kind of been centered around running the offense through Tyler Kolek and Cat. And so getting the ball to Cat, whether it's on the elbow, whether it's on the block. I think in the Boston game, he did a great job. The jumpers were falling, and I feel like that translated to the rest of his game and gave him confidence in the way he moved around the floor. So I don't know if it was less of an injury there. And sometimes it seems like the success of the jumper reflects on the rest of his game. And that can't really be the case. He has to bring it whether the shot is falling or not. Like, I don't mind shots not falling. I mind process not being something that yields good results. And so he's got to be able to establish position on the post against guys like Kyle Kuzma. He's got to be aggressive. And he's got to attack like he's, sometimes Cat attacks like he's not 7 feet. And, he has to play with that size at all times.
It's interesting because Mike Brown, after that game, said Towns, he thought did a great job in the first half, just Knicks playing off of him drawing attention from the defense and making the right read, making the right play. And then he felt the second half, Towns and everybody else really started to get away from that. And it was more isolation. It was more dribble heavy. And you saw the result. And Brown also said, like, with regards to the Towns' foul trouble, it's something that they've been talking about, been addressing. He is stressing just play defense with your chest. Don't lead with your hands. And he thinks that's sometimes where Towns gets in trouble with the fouls. And I think Towns said all the right things in Milwaukee. We were in the locker room after the game. He said, I just want to help my team win. I didn't do that tonight. I've got to be better, holding himself accountable. He said accountability is big in that locker room. And so everyone's saying the right things. It's going to be interesting to see what it looks like Friday in Chicago. It is so early, but everything counts for this team that they're all in on trying to win a championship, particularly this season. The window is open. Halliburton hurt, Tatum hurt, maybe coming back during the season, but this window is open for them to go and get it. And so I think everything, while it is early on, everything matters and everything's kind of being observed with a close eye because this team wants to get to where it wants to get to, and the stakes are very high. So let's see what it looks like Friday in Chicago. Maybe it's just a case of everybody getting comfortable, getting accustomed to playing a new system. Obviously, Knicks in Milwaukee, Giannis was talking about how motivated he was to beat the Knicks because they swept him last year. He also said he never saw the ESPN report that he wanted to be traded to the Knicks and only the Knicks. And so he kind of dodged that, didn't really address it, but did say it was important for him to go and beat the Knicks because they swept him last year. And if you look at how Milwaukee's played so far, Giannis in particular, they look like they're a strong team that's going to win some games. And big picture, why would Giannis leave if they're having success? So just in a big picture sense, it seems like that background noise with Giannis is going to be there in New York and Milwaukee all year. But if the Bucks are good and the Knicks are good, you're not going to see anything happen during the season. And I'm curious, Coach, for you, just particularly that end of game lineup against Milwaukee. Josh Hart was in there with the rest of the starters, and they were outscored 14-8. What did you see from that group? And just as a coach, like, is that just based on feel? Like, how do you say, all right, I'm going with Josh Hart over another option like a Landry Shamet?
Well, I think it's just the trust and the ability of Josh Hart to rebound. But let's be honest, Ian, I'm going to say this, they need Deuce. They need Deuce a lot more than people think because of his tenacity defensively as a lead guard that can really disrupt you offensively. They also need Mitchell Robinson as a rim protector. It doesn't matter if it's Giannis. I don't care whether big it is. It could be Patrick Ewing in his prime. You can't allow a guy to shoot 72% from the floor, especially when they're driving to the rim. So there needs to be better rim protection. And listen, at the end of the day, we know that Mike Brown's teams in Sacramento weren't the strongest defensively. They were more of an outscore you offensively, but he's got capable defensive players. Now, obviously, getting the foul trouble, hurt the Knicks a little bit. Obviously, Cat had fouls. Obviously, OG, I think, ended up with 4 fouls. So, the ability to not foul, and you talked about it a little bit with Cat earlier about just staying connected and trying to use your body and not your hands. I think really, when we look at the Knicks, not just that last game versus Milwaukee, but moving forward, I need to see who I think is the most indispensable player on that team, which is Mitchell Robinson, with his rim protection and the fact of how Cat was able to play in a double big system with Rudy in Minnesota, but also Deuce McBride, an ability to obviously defend. You got to remember, there were times last year in that playoff series versus Indiana, they picked on Cat, they picked on Hart, they picked on Brunson. So we need to see these two guys back in the lineup whole. And I think in that case, you may go a little bit more in offense, defense down the stretch to win some close games.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that decision-making process every time there's a close one. And Shaun, I think I have some good news for you and the other Knicks fans out there, because Mitchell Robinson did practice in Chicago with the team. And when you're practicing and just the situation he's been in, I think he's probably going to play tomorrow. I mean, the Knicks brought him on the road trip with the thought of him maybe being able to play, and now they've got him on the practice court, and I would be surprised if he didn't play against Chicago tomorrow. Also, Miles McBride back, missed a couple of games, personal reasons, back with the team and expected to play. He spoke to reporters in Chicago. So it looks like the Knicks could have both of those players back against the Bulls Friday. And then, Shaun, for you, if both those guys are back, what are you doing with your starting lineup, and how does what's the trickle-down effect there?
So with both of them back, it seemed like the intention was for Cat to be the start. I mean, for Mitch to start with Cat, which I think is a good thing. Having that rim protection out there is important, as Coach just said. But also, I really love the lineup with Deuce and the rest of the starters, as in Jalen, OG, Mikal, Cat, and Deuce. I think that lineup has been really good for us, was excellent for us in those first couple games, and was definitely, we missed that monumentally in both of those games, both in Miami and in Milwaukee down the stretch, because Deuce, not only does he give you that added defense and the point of attack defense that allows OG and Mikal to both be pests off the ball, but he also is a great floor spacer for us, and he's confident. He's confident and aggressive offensively. So I think his aggression translates from one end of the floor to the other, and definitely boosts us a lot. So I would imagine it would be Mitch starting, but I really feel like, it's one of those situations, kind of like an embarrassment of riches. We can't go wrong either way. And depending on how we want to match up, or depending on what we want to prioritize, both of those guys are going to be very helpful. So getting them both back is going to be absolutely huge for us.
Hey, Coach, if you wanted to start a conversation on Twitter with Knicks fans, you just talk about the starting lineup, talk about the rotation. Everybody has strong opinions, and there are different ways Mike Brown could go. Do you ultimately think that double big lineup is the best way to start?
I think it is, but Ian, it could be, and this is where it gets tough for the NBA, because these guys are creatures of habit, right? They're used to starting, coming off the bench. When are their minutes coming? They're no different than a high school kid, right? They want to know when they're coming in, when they're going out, so on and so forth. It'll be interesting to see if they ever went to go situational based. If they're dealing with a big that's not so much a perimeter base that you don't have to worry about getting beat on drives and so on and so forth, maybe they go with Cat at the 5, if they especially have a really strong backcourt. But I think the way to do it is with Mitch. You kind of look around the league, and you're seeing this shift to more of a double big lineup, right? You see Alperen Sengun playing the 4 with Steven Adams at the 5. Obviously, when you look at Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr., some of his best seasons, best performances is when he had Steven Adams, or even when he had Zach Edey with him at the 5 spot. So to me, I think if you're trying to, number one, get rim protection, because sometimes you're going to be beat on the point of attack. 2, the fact that Mitchell Robinson does so much in that dunker spot that as drives can happen, you got to load the layup, which can open up 3-pointers. So I think also that works for him as well. Plus, coming off an injury, I don't know about warming up. They're putting a guy to the bench to sit 6 minutes, then putting him into the game, whereas Deuce is more personal reasons. So I would lean more going with the double big lineup and bringing Deuce off the bench. I think he's also more accustomed to doing that.
It's going to be interesting to see which way it goes Friday and beyond when and if all the troops are healthy for Mike Brown. Speaking of health, Jalen Brunson, he was limping in the fourth quarter of that Bucks game. He said afterward his knee's fine. It looked like maybe he hurt his groin earlier in the game. He wouldn't really get into it. He just said he's good to go. And then Gershon Yabusele sitting with a knee ailment. Don't know his status yet for the Bulls game. Should find out more later tonight once those injury statuses are released. And I would assume he'd be questionable, but not sure of the severity of that one and when exactly it crept up. Now, guys, we're going to segue to a segment that we call Sound Off, where we listen to one of the recent sound bites out of the Knicks locker room or practice facility. And we take a look at it, we analyze it, and we talk about it.
Obviously, when the ball's going in the way it was in the first half, it's easy to say, all right, this shot doesn't matter than me trying to get mine. And everyone does it. Everyone does it. I do it. But I think for us as a team, we have to limit that as best we can and be able to hold each other accountable as best we can. And we can't let a lead dwindle down to be even. If we see that happening, we got to stop it right away and get back to who we are. But it's just habits, and we got to grow out of
that. The interesting thing there, and I think it was part of that audio, was Jalen saying that, he's not going to use things as excuses, anything as an excuse. But he said, in addition to saying that they have to really, really try to not bog down and get into that isolation offense, they have to stick to Mike Brown's principles. He said, they're new. It's a new group. They're probably going to struggle for a few weeks. Not an excuse he's going to use for the whole season. And he never really uses excuses. But for him to say it's going to be rough for a couple of weeks as we figure it out, I think that matters. I think that's probably what you're going to see early on for a team that's getting used to coaching staff, head coach, new system. And Brunson in particular is being asked to do a lot of different things. So would not be surprised if the Knicks hovered around 500 early in the season and then got their footing, assuming they're healthy, and really started to take off. And Coach, I'm just curious for you, implementing a new system, players learning it, coaches putting it in. Obviously, it's different at all levels. But if you're looking at the Knicks and Mike Brown, is there a point in the year where you say, all right, they should be comfortable with everything by, whatever it is, December 15th? Is there a point where you could say it's supposed to look normal now?
Yeah, listen, provided that you have Ian, the whole team healthy, you're probably looking about Christmas. You're about, which is unfortunately, in-season tournament's already gone through their whole run. To me, the Christmas time is when you really want to start to worry about being concerned about the team if they're not playing well, but they have to have everyone healthy. Folks, it's a completely different style offensive that the Knicks are doing. They're going from complete dribble the ball with Jalen Brunson, isolation happy, to a 5-out motion offense with split screen action. That's like running a Maserati to a Prius, or actually the opposite way around, a Prius to a Maserati in regards to how you're going to play with pace and what they're doing. So it's going to take time. And I think what you have is just a little bit of Brunson kind of going off, and then people just kind of reverted back to what they were used to and comfortable with in the past, which is Jalen, save us, Jalen, save us. I think one thing that when we jump back to the Milwaukee game, the thing that was most concerning with me isn't the fourth quarter. It's the beginning of the third quarter. You make a great run. You're up 12 at the break. You can't allow a team to just jump right back into the game. As a coach, you try and break the game into sections, right? Maybe you say, hey, 4-minute sections, there's 3 in the third quarter. We got to make sure that we win that first section. So if you come out of that first 4 minutes and it's 12 or 14 or 17 or 18, guys, we're probably talking about a different game, because even if Milwaukee works their way all the way back, getting over the hump becomes harder the longer you have to make that run. So as much as we want to talk about the fourth quarter, they have to come up with more urgency in the beginning of that third quarter if they want to keep that lead, extend the lead, and kind of put that game away early.
Shaun, do you like this offense that you're seeing, the new offense, Mike Brown?
I do like the offense I'm seeing. I love the way the ball moves. I love the way that everybody stays involved. And I feel like there's a lot of room for everybody to take their opportunity and create their opportunity. And I feel like we've seen Mikal Bridges kind of take advantage of that. And I'm looking forward to seeing him take more advantage of that. And I'm looking forward to seeing others kind of take advantage of it in the same way. But the offense has seemed nice. Some of the possessions we've had, even that haven't resulted in made shots, have been phenomenal and very fun to watch. And so, we've created a lot of good looks. I think that's why there hasn't been so much frustration on the end of at least the fans who make sense, because we understand that we're generating good looks. We just aren't necessarily knocking them down. And so we need the shots to fall. I really appreciate what Coach just said, because we've been banging that drum. It's the beginning of the third quarter, every single game. We had a slow start to the beginning of the third quarter in the Cleveland game, but we responded well. We had a slow start to the beginning of the third quarter in the Celtics game. Both of those games went into halftime with double-digit leads, let the lead get cut down. But in both of those games, the difference is we responded well and built that lead back up to where it was. And so those both resulted in wins. But now when you go to Milwaukee and you let them cut the lead down, and all of a sudden you don't respond well, now you're the one playing catch-up. And so we've got to come out and establish ourselves in the beginning of the third quarter to turn those 12-point leads to 18, like Coach said, rather than having a 12-point game become a 3-point game. And, you kind of just squandered all the work you did in the first half. So,
Shaun, after the show, I might ask you to make a list of the Knicks fans who make sense and the Knicks fans who don't make sense, and I think it'd be a fun exercise. But you guys are both saying here is exactly what Mike Brown said. He said he loved the process in the first half. They were getting great looks. They were playing it with his principles, and then second half they kind of reverted. And so maybe that's a case of a team getting used to this new system and building new habits, getting rid of old habits. And we'll see what it looks like mid-December. But certainly every game, again, matters because of where they are, what they want to do. So I don't think that they're in a place where they could wait so long for this to click. And I think if it doesn't click, and you're looking at mid-January, there's going to be changes, because the directive is clear: win a title this year, and everything's kind of being viewed through that prism, which I think is interesting. But guys, Mikal Bridges, you mentioned, Shaun. Coach, have you seen anything different from Mikal on either end of the floor schematically?
That he's actually dribbling the ball and trying to get to the basket? I mean, that's something that we've been screaming about. And it's interesting because Mikal's had a transition of his career, right? From being that third or fourth guy with Phoenix. Then he went to Brooklyn, and you kind of saw a little bit more of the totality of his game, the ability to go off the bounce, use the mid-range. He's kind of tall, and he's got a high release point, so even when he gets you into the post or on a putback, he can kind of shoot a little bit of that fadeaway he likes to do. So to me, I've seen a little bit more of an aggression of Mikal. He's also a really good mover without the ball. So I think him and this Mike Brown offense is probably the one, to me, that looks the best right now because of his ability to cut and move without the ball, but the ability to shoot the ball at the three-point line, but now being able to take people off the bounce. And with that Nick going, when they get that normal lineup, right, when it's that he's at the 2, he's so tall that if he gets to his spot into that mid-range pull-up, guys, he's not getting his shot blocked because he's got that high release point, and he's got the ability to be taller than his defender. So I actually like what I really have seen out of Mikal so far, and hopefully as the season goes along and the team gets comfortable, they'll lean on him, because I think the more that they get other guys, OG as well, to be able to score and move that ball and kind of be, I don't want to say equal opportunity offense, but equally opportunist offense in regards to finding the holes in the defense and making things work and getting buckets. Once that happens, guys, then when it gets to the winning time and JB is in charge, the clutch player you can deliver, because now you can't load up on him like it's happened in the past with the Knicks.
Yeah, that seems like the vision. And Coach, I appreciate the brand synergy mentioning the putback when you're talking about Mikal. So we'll probably ISO that for future reference. But also, when you look at Mikal, Shaun, I think you and I spent so much time talking about him last year and the ups and the downs and what was going well, what wasn't going well. He struck me as just super comfortable this year in a way that he wasn't going into last season because everything was new. And he's talked about how just it's different, knowing the buildings, knowing the support staff, knowing the coaches and your teammates, just knowing where you're going. And he just exudes that like comfortability level that's raised here. And you're seeing it on the court, I think. How are you assessing what you're seeing from Mikal so far?
I am absolutely loving what I'm seeing from Mikal. I feel like Mikal is placing himself in a different tier on this team for me, and personally. I think what Coach said is huge. That's been the main difference. Last year, Mikal might have taken 5 layups total. Every time he got to the basket, it was a turnaround 3-foot fadeaway for whatever reason. And now, like, he came into the season saying that he wants to put pressure on the rim and get to the line, and he's doing exactly that. He had an and-one in the Bucks game that was like nothing I've seen him do in his time here. I was blown away. I'm thrilled with the way he's playing because he's not only getting to the basket and creating for himself, he's consistently creating for others. And so, honestly, he's reaching that tier now. Like for Jalen Brunson, I think the world of Jalen Brunson. My request from Jalen Brunson at this point is, hey, go get 50, 40, 90. I think you're capable of shooting 90 from the free throw line. And he's done a better job with that this season. I'm very proud of him. And so Mikal has reached that tier where it's like, I know what I'm going to get from you. And now I want 15 shots a game from Mikal. Like against Miami, Mikal was really good again. He had 20 points. He was 7 for 11. It's like you are number 2 right now, honestly. Like whether it's because of injury to Cat, whatever's going on, Mikal seems to be the person with the second best grasp of what's going on and how to make it work for him and work for the team. So I want Mikal to continue to be aggressive. I'm thrilled with how he's playing. Also, he said he wanted to rebound, and I love when players say they want to do something and they go do it. Mikal is making a point to hit the boards. He just had 11 boards the other night. He's averaging like 6 a game. And even in plays where he doesn't get the rebound, you can see him working and get in position and attack the ball and use his size. Last year, Mikal was going out there and getting 3 boards, 2 boards, and it's like, you're 6'7". And like Coach said, you're at the 2, so you have a size advantage on most players on the floor. And I feel like now we're seeing him use that size rather than shying away from it.
That's it. And now it is time, guys, for Storylines, which is presented by Fanatics Sportsbook. Today, we're taking a look at Josh Hart specifically and his projected player props for Friday night in Chicago. Hart missed 1 game at the start of the season with a back injury, but has since played in the last 3, averaging 3 points and 7 boards a game. Be sure to check out the Fanatics Sportsbook app for all your NBA bets. Josh Hart, how does he fit? Where should he play? Who should he play with? Who should he not play with? It always seems to be a topic of conversation here around the Knicks and the Knicks fan base. And Coach, if you have a healthy Josh Hart, where is he coming off the bench? Are you okay having him out there with another non-shooter given the splint that he has on his finger? Like how are you using him and optimizing what he brings?
Well, listen, he's got to be the Energizer Bunny. So he's got to be the guy that comes off the bench and kind of leads that second group. Listen, it's going to be a tough game in Chicago. Chicago's a team that I was not honestly high on, but they've been very, very good defensively. So when you look at this game, his ability to rebound the ball and lead in transition, until his shot gets his everything fixed with his shooting, I wouldn't be looking at points props with him. Look for him to rebound the ball, rebound plus assist if you want to stack it up together. And that's how I would play Josh Hart until he gets going. I think that's the key is with him, if you put him with another non-shooter, now you can load up. So that also impacts his ability to do what he really does well, is crash the board. So to me, if he's in just the only non-shooter in that lineup, then that rebound prop looks really enticing because his ability to rebound the ball and push the break. But as the rest of the floor is being spaced, he's as good of a guard as attacking the O board and trying to get ready, a putback.
There it is. Thank you, Coach. And Shaun, when you have Josh, a healthy Josh, I just think that the conversation, at least from what I see around him, is so split. And he put it in his Twitter bio, like how quickly they forget or something to that effect, because he's been a part of so much winning here. And I'm guessing he sees people who are saying, hey, can't play Josh with player X, should have played player X ahead of Josh. How important do you see Josh as to this team's success this season?
I think Josh is very important to this team's success. And yeah, Josh literally hit some of the biggest shots in this millennium of Knicks history in the playoffs. I will never take that from him. He gives it his all. Record in triple doubles, and he's extremely capable. As far as what he's doing shooting wise, it looks rough out there, unfortunately. But we need him to shoot the ball. And so I had this issue with OG against Miami where he took 13 shots and 12 of them were threes. And I'm like, okay, well, what are you getting inside the arc? And so Josh, even though, yes, we do want him to shoot, and that's what I asked for, so I'm glad I got it. But last game, he took four threes and he took 5 shots. And so we don't want you to just be a spot-up shooter. Like, I feel like most of Josh Hart's drives against Milwaukee were horizontal. Josh's main skill is his ability to put pressure on the rim and get to the basket. So we need Josh Hart to get downhill regardless of the lineup he's in. I think that if Josh Hart is getting downhill, that makes it easier for him to make the defense bend, make those kickouts, hit that assist line of 4.5, which is pretty easy for him considering the transition. And the fact that if he's attacking the boards like he normally is, then he's already starting to break. Like that we're not running offense for Josh Hart. And Josh Hart also has to want the ball. I feel like a lot of times Josh is getting the ball and he's not making himself a threat. He's looking left. He's looking right. He's not looking to make a play. And so even when he's on the wing in those lineups trying to make that entry pass to Cat in the post, well, Cat, one, is not sealing his man on the block and is getting pushed out toward the three-point line. And Josh's man is also backing off of him. So there's absolutely no spacing on that pass, and they're struggling to even make an entry pass over there. And so Josh has to be confident. He has to keep shooting the ball, but he also has to put the ball on the floor looking to get to the basket and create.
Yeah, such an important element, I think, to this team, as you're saying, Shaun and Coach, and obviously dealing with the back and that finger. He says he's going to play through it with a splint on his finger instead of getting surgery, and it's always obviously something to monitor. And his shooting, to me, you get him in the playoffs. Look at two playoff runs ago. He went crazy from beyond the arc. So he's a big-time player. He can deliver in big-time moments. So I don't get too wrapped up in the ebbs and flows of the 82-game season as long as he's there in the playoffs. And I don't think he shot it as well in the postseason last year. So just interesting to see which way he goes and how do the Knicks, respond. So we'll see what happens there. But, guys, a little drama from something – a little Knick history, Knick lore, not recent. It was recent history because Phil Jackson has written a book with longtime NBA scribe Sam Smith, talking about some of the greatest players in the league. He writes about Carmelo, and he basically said 2 things. At the end, he said if Carmelo was going to stay, at the time Phil Jackson and the Knicks agreed to part ways, Carmelo was going to stay. Phil Jackson said, I should probably go. Because the relationship at that point, he said, was so busted, is the word he used. And I think he was right. I think that when you look back on that thing, I think both parties are at fault with Carmelo and Phil. But to me, Phil, as the team president, the Zen master, I thought that he should have done more to get Carmelo Anthony to buy in. Maybe he did, and maybe Carmelo just didn't want to buy into the triangle, and that's where it ended. But I just thought, just being around there, Phil could have, maybe should have done more one-on-one with Carmelo Anthony to appeal to him and to get him to buy in to that style. But Phil Jackson getting into some of that stuff in a new book, and he also talked about wanting to trade Carmelo and telling Jim Dolan once, we have to trade this guy. Well, Phil Jackson's the one who gave him that no trade clause in that negotiation, so he hamstrung himself there. But I just remember that era, man, for a lot of off-the-court stuff, a lot of crazy stuff coming out, a lot of resistance to the triangle, a lot of from the front office push towards running the triangle. Joakim Noah, bad signing. The report about Phil Jackson. Actually, I don't know, if he was having health issues, but at practice there was, I think it was Jay Williams that said he fell asleep in one of the workouts, and you're around there, you hear similar things. And so Phil Jackson just could not replicate his success as a coach in that Knicks presidency. Really there's not much to talk about from that era. But I thought the book was interesting. Shaun, who do you pinpoint at fault there? And if you're picking Carmelo or you're picking Phil?
There's a Drake line on the song Pipe Down where he says, if you were to write a book, it would be a tell some, not a tell all. And Phil is writing a tell some book, and he's telling Phil was terrible. And Phil, honestly, I feel like wasted Carmelo Anthony's prime and blames Carmelo Anthony for it. I mean, we were all here. So when I see some of those lineups with Langston Galloway and Lou Amundsen and Jason Smith and Samuel Dallenberg and Quincy Acey, stop me when I name somebody who's a relevant second option to a player that you're trying to build a contender with. I think that Phil just completely dismantled, what was possible for Melo's prime, forcing the triangle, saying he's not buying into running a triangle with Sasha Vujacic and Lou Amundsen. Maybe not, I don't know. I think that Phil made everything about Phil while he was here. And, everything had to be Phil's way, but Phil didn't have an established way. Phil had an established way as a head coach. Phil didn't have an established way as a GM, as a president of basketball operations. He was in over his head, and he acted like everyone else was drowning. And it was just very upsetting. And so some people should just go sit down somewhere and eat their food. And Phil Jackson is one of those people. We don't need this book. We don't need Carmelo being blamed. Carmelo is the easy scapegoat. I feel like at some point, I'm 31 years old. I feel like Phil's a lot older than me. And I feel like in most situations, I learned to be accountable and self-aware. And Phil instead, handles it how he does. So that's where I'm at. I try to say it as nicely as possible on the air.
No, it is. It's not surprising, but if he's going to really rehash it, you got to point the finger at yourself somewhat, Coach. For you, that era, Phil Jackson, Carmelo, who are you pointing the finger at? Because there are a lot of people who would point it at Carmelo. I wouldn't, but a lot of people would. He was such a lightning rod as a player.
Yeah, and listen, and I should say I am a longtime Knicks fan. So I'm almost 50 years old. I've gone through the grind, the ups and downs, and there were a lot of downs. Listen, I'm gonna say it like this: the blame initially goes to James Dolan. Because we could have sat and we could have waited and got Carmelo as a free agent and not gutted the roster, trading Mozgov, trading Wilson Chandler, right? In regards to that trade that got us Carmelo. So James Dolan panicked and went over Donnie Walsh's head. When you get to the situation of Phil versus Carmelo, listen, Carmelo's a scorer. Like, you know what you're going to get at Carmelo. Could he have done more to buy in? Maybe. But at the end of the day, you had a GM that was literally trying to recreate a 90s style offense that didn't have Jordan and Pippen or Shaq and Kobe. So instead of him kind of looking at a roster of what he had and tried to manipulate the roster in regards to a way that would work for him, he brought in guys like Jeff Hornacek. He brought in guys who weren't even guys that ran the triangle offense. So to me, there's a lot of blame in regard to how Phil ran it. James Dolan just kind of giving him the keys and letting him do what he had to do. It was just a lot of mistakes that were making. I mean, don't even bring up the Frank Ntilikina draft, who we could have ended up, who wanted to be here as a Knick when that went down. So to me, Phil Jackson, I think, is a way just trying to come back and have some kind of relevancy. I think he knows that if he tries to pick a fight with Carmelo, with the Knicks fans, he's going to get the smoke. And I don't think he minds it. I think he wants it. He wants the attention. He wants people to talk about him and his book. But at the end of the day, any right-mind Knicks fan will look at that era as such a dark era that I wish he would be history, and we don't have to hear about Phil Jackson talking about the Knicks again, to be quite honest with you.
The place I go just quickly is, Steve Kerr, so close to landing him. And I think Marv Albert told him, hey, just don't go there. You won't have success there. Kerr decided to go to Golden State, and the rest is history. But imagine if Steve Kerr decided to come to New York and how that would have impacted Golden State and the Knicks in NBA history. So always an interesting what if for me. We got an interesting quote here from Draymond Green, I believe from his show earlier today on the Knicks. He's saying that he doesn't think the Knicks are contenders. He doesn't think they have what it takes to win at the highest level. He thinks that you can stifle the Knicks offense, and ultimately, on defense, you have a couple guys on the floor at the same time that guys don't want to defend. They don't have that. And so it just makes it tough, he said, for them to win at the highest level. And Draymond I think last year too, he shared some similar thoughts about the Knicks. Turned out to be right last year. But Shaun, you see Draymond's analysis and you say what?
Draymond threw a punch at his teammate that knocked his own team out of contention, and he should focus on that. But I understand he's new media; it is what it is. But I really don't care what Draymond Green has to say, because when you say I don't believe the Knicks are contenders, then who in the Eastern Conference do you believe are contenders? Because the definition of contender means like a team that has an opportunity to contend. And so since two teams go to the Eastern Conference Finals and we are one of the returning ones, when you look at the rest of the landscape of the Eastern Conference Finals and you can tell me everything the Knicks don't have, tell me who does have all of that, And then at the end of the day, it's 94-50. So we'll see. And we'll see if maybe Draymond has the ability to meet us there. Draymond needs to worry about if the Warriors are contenders, honestly, in my opinion. But
well, I wouldn't be surprised if that got recirculated when the Warriors visit the Garden. But, Coach, one of the things Draymond referenced, and I think he didn't say names, but I think he was talking about Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns, just as on the defensive end, you have guys on the floor at the same time that the other team kind of keys on. And you're watching this team, were there ways last year, or do you think there are ways this year where you can have Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson on the floor and have a defense that can get stops when you need it? Can you scheme around that stuff? Can you not? You have to live with it. Just from a coach's lens, how do you see that?
Well, number one, this is what Draymond's worried about. It's clicks. That's all he wants. It's all clicks that he's trying to get. Listen, schematically, you can do different things, right? And you could pre-switch. You could switch early to not get that matchup. I think that's something that I don't think Tibbs did a good job of. I think the other thing is this: if you're going to have two guys that you want to call minus defenders, right, or neutral defenders, then you got to have three defenders that are extremely strong, which means that's that starting lineup with Mitch, with OG, and with obviously Mikal Bridges. You got to surround with three other guys that are strong defensively, including one that you could turn around and put at the rim as rim protection in Mitchell Robinson. So yes, listen, the Knicks had their deficiencies. Yes, was Tibbs a little bit, not adjusting to how Rick Carlisle, and I think when we talk about, coaches, and we talk about Phil Jackson trying to run a triangle, like a guy like Rick Carlisle doesn't get enough credit for evolving as a coach and evolving with his roster and using what he has to his advantage, right? So to me, if you pre-switch early, right, you put Mitchell Robinson as that rim protector in the paint, right, and then you have two lockdown wing defenders in OG or Mikal. Then obviously you have Deuce coming off the bench to if you want to put one of those guys on the bench and then have Deuce take away the point guard, pick up full court, which has now become another thing that's big. They do it to the Knicks. I would love to see Deuce pick up full court. So now what happens is you're not getting into your offense until 14 seconds, 15 seconds. Guys, that's one or two actions and the ball's going up. You can't get into a flow. So hopefully Mike Brown adjusts, but surround those two with strong defensive players, and you should be able to be okay.
Yeah, you saw the Knicks, I think, late in the Cleveland game, they did apply some pressure. I think they had two or three guys playing up. And Mike Brown's talked about exactly what you said, Coach, just the idea that, you make that ball handler cross over a few times. You're not giving them a straight line, and then all of a sudden, 8 seconds are off the shot clock as they get into their stuff. I think that happened a lot to the Knicks last year, and it seemed like at least that Cleveland game they were trying to do it themselves. Guys, now we're going to hit a segment called the Talkback, where we bring my friend and yours onto the show, Matt Spenley, the Big Spend, our social media extraordinaire. He's here to relay a few questions from the audience, and we'll get into it. What's happening, Matt?
What's up, guys? What's going on? That Phil Jackson discussion took me to a dark place. I was getting some bad memories. I was enjoying listening to you guys, but some bad memories. Much better times now. Ian, I want to start off. I know you were in Milwaukee with the team. Obviously you asked Giannis some questions, but with the Knicks and how the last couple losses have gone, I'm just curious, you being around the team on the road and then obviously at home, what's your kind of feel with the locker room and around the team under Mike Brown so far?
Yeah, I think the general thought is it's early, and we're figuring out what Mike Brown wants to do, how he wants to do it, and there's going to be an adjustment period. I mean, I'll go back to Jalen Brunson even saying this and saying they need some time. And he's like, I'm not going to use that excuse for long, but right now it is a factor. And so for him to say that publicly, I think tells you all you need to know. I don't think anybody's panicking. I think Karl Towns, I think you could see some frustration there. And so that's something where I think maybe it takes a little longer for everybody to get comfortable, everybody to get accustomed to one another. But yeah, I think that's what you're seeing right now. I think there was, you're a little deflated. That's the sense that I got in Milwaukee after that game because you had a chance to win it. But no one is panicking. I think it's just the sense that, hey, we've got a few weeks here to figure this out, to get comfortable with each other. And if you get to mid-December and they're struggling, it's a whole different story. But I think just internally in that locker room, they know they have to win games. They know every game counts, but at the same time, it's a process right now of feeling everything out. And I think kind of that's where they're at. That's the sense I got in Milwaukee.
And such a long season. Shaun, I know we talked about Cat at the top of the show. I'm curious for you. Ian mentioned, his feelings, and I know one of the clips that he had said before the season about his role in the offense. He said, honestly, I don't know. I think that was coming from a place of they hadn't played a game together yet. But just for Cat and his fit, I want to know how you feel and if you have any concerns about that, because that seems to be the prevailing conversation right now.
Yeah, I think people overreacted to that comment initially. I think it was just, honest and transparent. They haven't figured it all out yet, and we know it's going to be a process. And so I just want to see Cat stay engaged. As I said earlier, I don't want him to seem less interested when his jumper's not falling. I want to see Cat stay engaged and locked in and giving his best effort. My friend Bro, esteemed content creator, he always talks about like this team at the end of the season is going to be like the best version of this team. We're going to be so much better. And so, but we can't be that team yet. We're going to have to get there. Progress is the process. But I just want to see us be the best version of the team we currently are. And I think I want to see Cat be the best version of even his current understanding of the offense, as it's going to be a work in progress.
Sure. And like we said, so early. But overreaction is the name of the game. That's what we like to do anyways, right? That's why we're fans. All right, Ian, I want to ask you one more on Cat, and then, Coach, I'm going to come to you on Brunson. But Ian first. Hired Nick Snipa is asking, what is truly going on with Cat? Is the injury affecting him? If so, why not just sit out until he's healthy? So can you offer up any more insight into Cat's injury and if it's something that, should be a concern?
Yeah, I asked him after one of the first two home games, I think it was the second one, how much are you playing in discomfort? And he's like, yeah, I mean, absolutely. So he's telling you that he has been limited by this injury. Why don't you sit? Why don't you get healed up? I don't know why that decision isn't being made, but clearly the organization's comfortable with Towns playing through whatever he's playing through. He's comfortable enough to play through it. So I think part of it, though, is you've heard Mike Brown reference a couple of times, just the speed that he wants his guys switching plays on, like offense to defense, and kind of you miss a shot, put it behind you, get back on defense. And I think that's an adjustment, I think, for everybody. I think Mikal Bridges does it naturally, but it's an adjustment for Towns too, because, he at times will just, barrel towards the rim and finish or not finish and ended up on the floor. And then it puts the Knicks at a disadvantage on the other end. That seems to me like something Mike Brown is trying to get out of his diet as they move forward here.
Yeah, and Cat's injury, speed of play in general, obviously will be something to monitor. Coach, I want to ask you about Jalen Brunson. Pretty simply, what have you seen from him that's so different in Brown's offense versus last year? I think obviously the isolation numbers are a big difference, but I'm curious for you when you watch Brunson, what stands out to you as the biggest difference?
I think the ability to play off the ball. I think that's something that I think Jalen Brunson could do really well. If you really go back and you look at the run that Dallas had going to the Western Conference Finals, they went to that 2-point guard system with him and Luka, and there were times they put Brunson on what they call that second side of the floor, right? So they run their ball screen, whatever kind of action that they run, and then they have you on the second side of the floor. That's something that I want to see more of, more movement of Brunson. I think when Brunson catches the ball, even in a wing pick-and-roll action, teams can load up when we're stationary. If the ball is moving, if he's on that weak side of the floor and you run some kind of action, you can go there. So you could run that point screen away action that they run a lot where you backdoor someone, he pops, and then if you throw it to him, you can run a high ball screen and kind of get him on the run a little bit so teams can load up. Flip side, if he does have the ball and you run that pinch action, you run what we call over the top, where you go over the top of the elbow, set that screen in the corner, get the movement, and then bring him back. So to me, for him to get the ball back and then get to movement and come off of a screen, or put him on the weak side of the floor where teams can't load up, and then you give him the ball on the run. I think if we get more of that movement that I think Mike Brown wants to see, you'll see actually a more efficient Jalen Brunson. That speaks to that 50-40-90 split that we may be looking at with Brunson, which I think could be possible.
And I mean, it stuck out to me too. He hasn't brought the ball up as much. Shaun mentioned OG, Mikal, and Deuce when he's healthy have brought the ball up a little more often. Ian, Love My Knicks is asking, Brunson seems to be making an effort to be more of a vocal leader this season. Do you have any insight on that? So I think at this point we know Jalen Brunson pretty well. He's been in New York. I'm just curious from Love My Knicks, do you notice anything different?
I think the cameras caught him talking to Karl-Anthony Towns late in a recent game, but I don't think Jalen Brunson is changing much from year to year about his approach, non-on-court approach, non-playing approach, how he mentally approaches every day, how he approaches leadership. I don't think that's shifting much from year to year, so I think you're getting the same pretty much from Brunson that you have in the past from a leadership perspective. The idea that he is the team captain, though, he has said it's a role that he is kind of has had to grow into. But I don't think he's going to do anything that's out of character. He's going to do things like you saw with Karl-Anthony Towns, pull a guy to the side, share his thoughts, make sure he's in a good place. But I don't think he's more vocal or less vocal than he has been in the past.
And it's a different role too under a new head coach, right? And I'm sure that changes things just naturally. So that's what I got, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. And then we're going to look ahead and wrap things up here, guys. Back-to-back Chicago, home and home here. And Shaun, for you, let's say McBride's back. Let's say Robinson is back. What do the Knicks need to do to have success against a Bulls team that has started out very strongly?
We need to keep taking the shots that we're taking. We're generating good looks, as I said, but we don't need to rely exclusively on the looks that we're creating. I believe that we need to be a little more aggressive. I want to see in that first half, OG made this step through move through the lane, kind of like that James Hart sweep through and got an and-1, and that was like right after another drive he had. And every time OG attempts to drive to the basket, he gets there so easily. So I want to see him continue to be more aggressive. And I think that when OG is more aggressive, and I feel like that breaks the defense down, makes them converge, creates opportunities. We take a lot of threes. Therefore, teams are going to be closing out hard, especially if we're playing 5 out. So that opens up a lot of lanes to drive. I know that our, the whole offense is predicated on, driving and spraying. But I just want to see us take advantage of those opportunities. And then, keep it intense defensively, limit them to one possession. I feel like Chicago is just really gritty and they're really annoying. And no matter what, no matter how bad they are, no matter how good we are, they always give us a problem. They always give us an issue, especially when they're playing at home and get momentum. So, a lot of times when we give momentum to teams, it's those teams that are putting a lot of shots up and we're allowing them to get second chances and kickouts and, knock down extra threes to drive the fans, mad. And so take care of the ball, limit them to one shot, and attack. I think those are the 3 keys every night for me, to be honest.
Coach, for you, individual matchup that you're looking at with Knicks and Bulls over the next couple games?
Yeah, listen, it's going to be, to me, 3-on-3. If we have the full complement of the lineup, it's Mitch on Vucevic, it's OG on Bazelis, and then it's going to be Mikal on Josh Giddey. That is the matchup that we have to exploit our will defensively, right? Making them work. Obviously, you could put Brunson on Jones and you can kind of hide him. Now, Cat, putting him on a Okoro, I think is in a bad matchup because you can make him kind of the roamer, the weak side rebounder, maybe the weak side shot blocker. Sometimes we know that Vucevic likes to step out to the perimeter. So to me, it is that matchup of those 3. If the Knicks can impose their defensive will with our 3 strongest defenders, in which I think if we have our defenders, I think we have the matchup advantage there. If we're able to do that, then I think they'll have problems in the other end stopping, namely Cat and Brunson.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun to watch, interesting to watch. I love these in-season back-to-backs. You can, look at how the coaching staff adjusts game to game. I think the NBA does a great job schedule making, putting these in there. But guys, that'll do it for us. Just one quick thing for Knicks fans out there is tomorrow, Friday, is the deadline for the Knicks to pick up the option for next year on Bacome Dadier's deal, $2.9 million option. The Knicks at a place where every dollar counts with that second apron. So it's going to be interesting to see what that decision ends up being. It's going to have some implications in the future. We'll see where it goes there. But Shaun, thank you so much. Coach, thank you so much for joining us here and for talking Knicks. And we will be back very soon. We're going to be back November 6th with the Putback presented by Fanatics Sportsbook. So check us out then, and we look forward to seeing you soon.